Right, welcome back. We are joined in the studio by former Labour MP Luciana Berger and the Head of Communications at the IEA, Reem Ibrahim. Ladies,
morning
lovely to see
Hello,
you.
good morning.
Hi. Right, really want to talk about this story. Nick Timothy, MP, Conservative MP, was talking in the House of Commons yesterday about the success of the Michaela school run by Catherine Birbalsingh, Channel 4's, as she's known, Britain's strictest head. Just watch this and watch the response from Bridget Phillipson, Education Secretary.
I'm sure the Education Secretary will want to thank all school leaders for their work in helping English schools to soar up the PISA and TIMSS rankings. But will she join me in sending personal congratulations to Catherine Birbalsingh, whose approach to discipline, the curriculum and teacher-led instruction makes her school, Michaela, the best in the country.
Mr. Speaker, I will always celebrate the fantastic work of our school leaders and teachers because they are how we will drive high and rising standards across our school system. But I think the Honourable Gentleman and I have probably more in common than he realises. He might recognise these words. The greatest injustice in Britain today is that your life is still largely determined not by your efforts and talents, but by where you come from, who your parents are and what schools you attend. This is wrong. The words of the 2017 Conservative manifesto that he was involved in writing. This government will right those wrongs and break the link between background...
Luciana, what's your response to that as a former Labour MP? It's very simple, isn't it? This is the most successful school in the country. She has an incredibly diverse group of children. They have the biggest improvement from entry into school at year 7 to when they leave at the end of A-levels. If there's any school that should be held up as a beacon of success, it is that. Why can't she just say, well done?
Well, she did say well done. She said well done to all school leaders and teachers.
She couldn't bring herself to say that.
But she responded to the first part of his question. So his first part of the question was, will she welcome the work of all teachers and leaders, which she did in her response.
He asked her to be specific.
I understand that, but she did respond to the first part of the question and she welcomed the work and celebrated the work of all school leaders and teachers in this country.
All school leaders, even those who are failing?
She went on to say in the second part of her sentence, I've got it in front of me here, that are driving high and rising standards across our school systems. I think it's important to acknowledge the work of all of our teachers.
Why can't she bring herself to say she's done an amazing job?
There's a few things. I mean, you know, we're all very quick to have a go. Having sat in the chamber of the House of Commons, you don't always hear. I mean, looking at the transcript of what was said, you know, it seems clear when it's picked up on the microphone, but you don't always hear exactly what is said within the chamber. It's not an excuse, but that is partly some of the challenge when you're trying to respond to questions. I've had the challenge personally of standing at the dispatch box as a shadow minister, you know, trying to deal with and field questions. And, you know, it's not always the acoustics in the room. It's not looking to make excuses, but sometimes you can't always hear exactly what.
She is controversial. Catherine Birbalsingh is controversial, and the school has had some controversy because they had a Muslim pupil that wanted a prayer room at lunchtime. Catherine was taken to court over that and actually won that case. She argues that the multiculturalism in her school is not just going to happen by accident. She has to engineer integration. She does it through lunchtime. She does it through the way that the classes are structured.
So
is that
from the area
controversial for Bridget Phillipson?
Well, no, not the question specifically was about the achievements of the school, the academic achievements of the school, and what it has, you know, done in terms of performance and results. And you know, someone who's from that area, I grew up in Wembley. It's all credit to the results that school under the leadership of that head teacher has achieved. Again, you know, I think it's.
But she didn't say that, did she? I think
it's very to kind of pinpoint specifically on an answer. It wasn't like she was completely dismissing the question.
It's because she's been embraced by people like Michael Gove when he was educated. I think that's the problem for the Education Secretary.
I think we can put words in her mouth, or we can come to assumptions or conclusions, and we haven't yet had a response specifically on that question from the Education Secretary. If we had a response to say that was her choice, but you know, I think you can't pick up and draw some conclusions from one answer in the House.
Well, I think it is definitely clear that she was in some ways avoiding the question. I think you're probably right. I've not been in Parliament during a debate like this, so I don't know if the acoustics are much quieter.
It wasn't exactly a crowded chamber, was it?
No, exactly, it wasn't, and there clearly was a direct question, direct answer, and the direct answer was effectively trying to avoid the question by saying that, well, we all know that inequality in education is really rife, that actually, you know, a lot of the time what matters is where you come from, but the Michaela school is a state comprehensive. Yeah. The children do not pay to go to that school. Well, I think no matter what your perspective is on how strict that particular school is, it is undoubtedly clear that they have made immeasurable achievements academically. And whether or not it is due to that approach, I think it's a really good example of a multicultural school that has actually been able to engineer that integration, as you said, Bev, but much more strictly. Now, in countries like France, they've taken away for everybody that kind of ability to portray your religion. In this particular, which I don't agree with, but in this school, what it does mean is that when you go to the school, from the morning to the afternoon, you are all exactly the same and you're all treated exactly the same. And I think that it is really, really proven to be effective.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that with Bridget Phillipson, why it's important to me that we have to read between the lines, because she's made it very clear she doesn't support private education. She's punishing people whose children go to private school, and yet she can't even bring herself to applaud a gritty state school with deprivation.
I just don't accept it.
That increases social mobility. So what does she stand for as the education minister? She just seems a bit sort of
bitter.
Bitter is the word.
I don't accept that. I mean, I've seen that she's done countless visits to schools right up and down the country.
She's working. Michaela. I don't think she's been to Michaela, has she? Most successful.
I don't know the answer.
I'm not sure she's been.
I don't know the answer to that question, so I couldn't say either way. But I do know over the course of the past 5 months, she's been to my kids' primary school, state primary school in North London, for example, and I've seen her do lots of visits to see the kind of range and plethora of education. I mean, the separate issue about private education, obviously, is that over 95% of children in this country don't go to private school. We do have an issue where too many of our schools have crumbling buildings and don't have the investment they need. And currently, those private schools enjoy VAT, have until now enjoyed VAT relief, and haven't done, I don't think, played their part to be not just islands within communities, but to help all schools in the way that they should have done.
Played their part.
They haven't.
Today, Parliament is debating AI, but nobody in the media seems to be talking about it.
The MPs are going to talk about technical legal changes to something called the data bill. But should we be concerned more about the rise of AI?
Well, somebody that is a director of Big Brother Watch, Silky Carlo, to tell us more. Silky, thank you so much for joining us. Can you explain to us, please, why this data bill is so important?
Good morning, and thank you for covering this because it really is important. These are highly technical legal changes, but they are designed to open the floodgates to automated decisions made about all of us in everyday life. So we hear a lot about AI in the press and from politicians, and about innovation and growth and money and GDP. But actually, these are things, and the decisions that can be made by machines are things that affect all of us. And it's not just about money, it's about fairness, it's about justice, privacy, our data, health, even the right to life, because already automated decisions are being made in the NHS about things like organ transplants and who is eligible for an organ transplant and who gets higher up on the list. Police forces are using AI cameras to decide who to stop and question. They also some forces are using AI in custody suites to decide who to prosecute and who to release. And of course, we're all familiar with some of the high profile stories like the automation and AI that was used in the A-level grading scandal, which of course got it wrong for thousands of young people who had their lives affected. So we need to be really cautious when we're opening the floodgates to machines making sensitive decisions about our everyday lives. This isn't the kind of thing that should be happening in the shadows. It should be happening with an enormous amount of scrutiny and with the strongest safeguards. But actually what the Labour government is doing is saying we're going to water down massively the very few safeguards that already exist, and we're going to enable AI decisions to be made for all purposes about the public.
And that's therefore the frustration that any of us feel when you're on hold to an automated number, or you're talking to an AI bot. I'm just trying to get people to use their imaginations as to what that's going to feel like in the real world, Silky. Can you give us a real world example, maybe around health, let's say?
Yeah. Absolutely. There was a young woman who was waiting for a liver transplant, a life-saving operation, and she couldn't understand why she wasn't higher up on the list and why her position was where it was. She wasn't informed by the NHS. She had to do her own research and find out that there was something called the Liver Transplant Benefit Score, which, guess what, is based on lots of pieces of data and is an automated score that was sorting people as to when they should be eligible for a life-saving operation. Wow. And she then was able to find out what data was going in, why she was ranked low, and she did find that there were problems in there, and that it was effectively making a nonsensical decision. Now, in cases like that, that's a life and death decision in the NHS already being made by AI. I don't think the public have fully grasped, because of the level of secrecy, just how impactful and widespread these kinds of decisions are.
Do you know how widespread they are, Silky? I mean, how often does that sort of thing happen?
It's starting to happen in the NHS. We also saw AI creeping into the NHS during COVID, when lots of contracts were being given out left, right, and centre. And we're seeing police forces increasingly using AI. It's also in the welfare system, and often, this is the kind of stuff that is used to the disadvantage of people. So the government is using algorithms to flag members of the public as potential fraudsters, and that's particularly in the welfare system, people who are already on the poverty line. This isn't happening in the city. It's not happening to multimillionaires. It's happening to people who are living on 20, 30 pounds a week. And this is spreading across the public service, let alone the private sector.
And now I could have you on here for 2.5 hours, because I think everything that you're tapped into are the biggest threats to humanity at the moment. I make that's no exaggeration, but individuals in this country are soon going to be encouraged to have a digital ID to go into restaurants and pubs and clubs. What is that about, Silky?
This is happening in the same bill, that there is this digital identity framework being created by the government, as they call it. And it is basically an encouragement towards more widespread use of digital ID. In the bill, it is pitched as the government kind of giving a trust mark to the multiple different companies who offer digital ID now. I think the most important thing in that debate is to make sure that it stays optional. Yeah. Because in practice, lots of people do need to use digital ID now. For example, if you are signing a new rental agreement, or doing online banking and so on. But the really important thing is that you should always have a choice. And so we've been leading the campaign in Parliament on this bill, not only on the AI and automated decisions, but on digital ID, to say, fine, make digital ID available to people who want to use it. But you have to legally safeguard our right to not use digital ID and to use other forms of ID where it's really needed. Yeah. Bearing in mind that there are well over 5 million people in this country who aren't even competent or even connected to the internet. And so a lot of people get cut out by these systems, and a lot of people just don't want to use them. Sharing identity data online can be very dangerous as well. So we do need to have these kinds of safeguards and protections, so that we don't have to live in the digital matrix if we don't want to.
Exactly. Right, great to see you, Director of Big Brother Watch, Silky Carlo, there. Because the implications of that is you will never be allowed to go out without your phone. And that will have to be fully charged, and you'll have to have Wi-Fi, you'll have to have signal.
That's why I think it'd make a terrible mistake when they pay for things on their phone.
Yeah.
You will soon, that'll be the only way you can pay. I'm never going to pay on my phone.
I hate it. I hate everything about it.